Afternoon, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I hope everyone's staying cool and getting through this weather we're having this week. Welcome to the webinar, Case Management for ITP Students, a tiered approach for multi-level participants. Before I hand it over to our presenter, I'd like to introduce to you Burlington English with Brandy Cardwell, our great partners. So Brandy.
Hi, thanks, Bethel. Hi, everybody. Got a few slides to share here. Alrighty, so that is not me. That is Robert. I'm subbing in for Robert today. I'm Brandy Cardwell. And I work in the Midwest and Northeast states. So I see some familiar names here. It's nice to see your names. I hope to see you soon. As always, we at Burlington English are thrilled to help bring these incredibly valuable webinars that I love to attend personally. Today's topic is something we have special interest in because educators use our career content to help internationally trained professionals, as well as all students, reach their career goals. All right, so for any student, we lay the foundation with Burlington Core. If you haven't seen this course, it's a wonderful, comprehensive core curriculum. So with Burlington Core, we start introducing career awareness right away with projectable lessons for teachers that blend seamlessly with lessons that allow students to continue studying even outside of the classroom. So that can be on a laptop computer, desktop computer, tablet, and even smartphones. With Burlington Core, not only do students learn English, but they also get the rigor of standards that prepare them for future study. And then next, we have career exploration and soft skills. With this course, we help learners not only narrow down the careers that would be best for them, but we help them gain the skills that they need to get and keep jobs. Uh-oh, too quick here. Because many teachers are new to the area of career exploration, we provide everything they need to provide robust instruction for students. Educators also love our engaging students that are engaging video simulations of career counseling as well as mock job interviews. And lastly, we put it all together with our English for specific careers. We have career-specific study in all 16 Department of Labor career clusters. So in our English for specific career courses, students learn the real-life career-specific vocabulary and on-the-job dialogues they'll need for career study, as well as in the workplace. So thank you, Kerri, for allowing me to introduce you. Thank you, Bethel, for allowing us to sponsor. If you'd like any information about Burlington English, please visit our website at burlingtonenglish.com, and somebody from your state will reach out. Thanks again, everyone, and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Burlington English. We value our partnership so much. And now I'm going to turn it over to Kerri Rhodes. So Kerri.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Kerri Rhodes, and I am the Chief Program Officer at Restore Education in San Antonio, Texas. I'm so excited to be with you all today and talk about the ways to support internationally trained professionals through case management in ESL and ESOL classes. And I hope that what we talk about today will help programs serve students at differing levels of English language fluency. Let's see. Okay, so today, just a quick look at our objectives. I'm hoping that you will all be able to summarize strategies to serve ITP students. Internationally trained professionals are folks with an education attainment from their home country. Hopefully you are going to identify what case management services that your learners need and design services that will prepare students for their next steps. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take some time to talk about the components of a program that serves internationally trained professionals, the partners in the community that play a part of also supporting these students. I also want to take some time to talk about the case management model and the specific components of services that can be added. And then depending on time, I am hoping to have a place to answer questions from you all. I am going to ask that if you do have questions, please make sure to post it in the Q&A section, because that's where I will be answering questions from. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get started. First, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the components of serving students in internationally trained professional programming. So in my work with adult education service providers in Texas, there are a variety of ways to support ITP students in our programs. So a lot of times this is going to depend upon the context and the program size or funding. So what this looks like in a rural environment versus what this looks like in an urban environment can be completely different. What this looks like when it's a small program, perhaps out of a school district, versus a more robust program, perhaps out of a community college. And so the person who is providing the direct services can typically be in one of three different roles. So it could be an instructor. So this could be somebody who has long experience in ESL, who has built up a database, a network where they understand, oh, if I'm working with a student, this is how I want to support them. Another role could be someone who is a career navigator. And what they could do is they are doing the activities of case management. So they are functioning as a case manager. And then I know for us, what we have done in our program is when we first started, this was through an instructor who had additional special knowledge. And then we have transitioned to where the instructor is providing the language fluency services, the ESL classes, but we have a career navigator who is providing the activities. What's important is that they're helping them in their educational and career journey. One of our partners actually pairs a program coordinator whose duties also include in advising internationally trained professionals in their classes. So in this way, folks have a variety of ways of implementing case management. The next thing to consider in setting up serving internationally trained professionals is thinking about comprehensive assessment. So thinking about the internationally trained professionals in your community, you want to think about what sort of holistic services do our students need? Are there any special considerations to take for them in their life situations? Are they refugees? Is there an issue in settling into the community? Are they going to be in our community for a short time before they transition to someplace else? So this is going to be in addition to the language assessment that we give them, right? That placement test. So there could be a chance for you to take the time to figure out that life situation, to create that service plan. So one of the things that we have found throughout our network is that completing the comprehensive assessment, an interview is a fantastic strategy to kick off services. This can introduce the students to all of the services that ITP case management can include. And in a one-on-one session, you and the student can determine which items you would like to implement with them. This could be a new student that is coming in that has just completed the intake process. They've done their application. They have done the language assessment. Oh, I see that you have completed your education in your home country. We actually have a special program that we'd like to talk with you about. Can we set up an appointment and then complete that interview? It could also be a current ESL student who discloses their education at a later time. Sometimes there are folks that do not feel that their education is necessarily relevant, so they don't include it on their application. But they may come up to you once they learn more that this program may be an option. And so after they've disclosed their education, you can take the time to say, wonderful, the instructor or the career navigator can complete that interview as a first step. This interview is vital because it becomes that building block for relationships with the students. When the staff are culturally competent, they're going to make sure that they're creating that safe environment for the students to talk about all of the needs that they may be having, as well as their goals for what they want to accomplish in their new home. So now that we've talked about the pieces of setting up serving students through a case management model, what we're going to do is we're also going to think about the wider community, because adult education, we may not have all of the resources necessary to serve somebody. And so especially internationally trained professionals. So it is important for us to work with the partners in our community. So first step, what we have done and what I've seen other successful programs do is that they are going to connect with other nonprofits. The ones that I mentioned, especially here on this slide, are going to come from our community in San Antonio, Texas. But that's just to give you an idea of what could be available in your community. And again, a city versus a rural community may have different options that are available. So again, it's going to be about context. So first of all, starting with the immigrant serving agencies, because of the various legal and life challenges that the students may be facing. Here in San Antonio, we will work directly with Catholic Charities if someone is needing extra support. They're the ones that have the decades of experience and expertise. So we want to make sure that our students are connected and using that as a resource if they are needing it. And this is especially true with staff that are new to serving internationally trained professionals. It may feel like, oh, do I need to know so much about the immigration process? No, you do not. Let's go ahead and let's rely on the resource within the community. Another strong partner would be the United Way agencies and the faith-based organizations. So developing that strong network of support ensures that the students have access to resources and that network. So for example, we have developed a relationship with San Antonio Hope Center. They support our work with internationally trained professionals, especially around financial literacy, workforce preparation, and emergency services. Oftentimes, you can also work with the faith community because that can help create a sense of familiarity and support the students in their educational journey. The importance with the nonprofits, the faith-based organizations, et cetera, are going to be that you will have places to send students for referrals, potential financial needs, and then also community and social supports for the students. The next source of partnership are going to be working with our local workforce boards. So in Texas, our one-stop centers are through our local workforce boards, and these are vital partners to our work with internationally trained professionals. So our boards are an immigrant and refugee serving agency, and they also have close ties to the business community. So they are a great ally in promoting skilled immigrants and the benefits of hiring folks with an education from their home country. Our workforce board hosts job fairs or employers that table in the front office. So that becomes a great way to help our students learn how to network within the professional community. They also will have workshops or resources for workplace readiness along with those employer connections. And then in our community, they're the ones that have the childcare vouchers for the students who may qualify so that they can use that as they are going to school or working. And so thinking about more partnership opportunities, two main other opportunities include the business community itself and local government agencies. So talking about connecting with the local business community, we can look at directly working with employers, or we can talk about going to speak with the Chamber of Commerce. That becomes a gateway to the network of small businesses and a great place to build relationships. Another part of the business community could be the professional networks and organizations. So an association of accountants or a group that is talking about medical professionals. These can be places that our ITPs can connect with others and learn more about their career pathway and what that looks like here in the United States. Ultimately, adult education programs can create these relationships that could lead to workplace literacy classes. It could be a potential pipeline to employment for students and graduates from our program. And again, that network that supports the program success and student success. Within our state and local governments, there can be an office for new Americans or a department that includes a focus on immigrants and refugees in the community. They are a great place to reach out to and talk with to talk about a coordinated community approach to providing support for internationally trained professionals. Adult education programs are the solutions that they are looking for. We have the ESL classes and the technical expertise in that area. We are helping students learn English and prepare for the workforce. So we can be that key ally to prevent skills underutilization or brain waste for our internationally trained professionals. Okay, so now that kind of sets the stage. Let's go ahead and let's dive in and talk more about the case management model and what that can look like when serving internationally trained professionals. So again, the idea is to think about ways to engage students as a professional, even when they are at the beginning of their journey in learning English. So the beautiful thing about providing case management is that you don't have to wait for a minimum level of language fluency. Often, if you think about an internationally trained professional student that's been placed into that lower level ESL class, because they're new to English, they need it. Sometimes they may feel that they are not learning what they need or that the class is not meeting their expectations. So by including case management, they can stay engaged in the ESL classes and still get that career focus that they are looking for. So thinking about World Education's landmark work on the 6 drivers of persistence in adult education, case management is one way that programs can ensure that their services are relevant, they have a deep purpose, and they are providing the students agency in setting on and working on their goals. So that way the students are going to be able to keep their focus and continue that long educational journey towards achieving that career success that they are looking for. Another thing that we want to make sure that we consider is we want to think about how are we going to keep track of this information. So when documenting ITP work, especially around case management, it's important that this information is going to be available. Again, beyond what may be put into, I know in our situation, what we're doing is we are keeping track of some of this information in the state database, which rolls up to, again, the state goals and targets. But what we are also doing is we are keeping track of information so that instructors and career navigators and program leadership are able to keep track of who are the students involved, what are their goals, and what outcomes are they achieving, right? Because if we're able to clearly tell our student stories, that is going to create that vital connection for our partners, future employer partners, and then potential future funders. So again, one strategy that we have used, especially for internal tracking, is using a shared spreadsheet. So we've used Excel, we've used Google Slides. And again, here you can list out all of the students who are qualifying for services. You can talk about the which students have completed the interview. Is there a short summary of goals? Is there a place where people can share notes from interactions? Is there a place to keep track of how many referrals have been given? And so much more. So the benefit of tracking these students is that you are still able to see who are all of the people who qualify as an internationally trained professional, someone who has an education level beyond secondary from their home country. Perhaps the student may be waiting on work or authorization, or they could be waiting for education documents from their home country. You can track these students and let everyone know what the status is. Even though they may not actually be funded as an internationally trained professional, you can still work on serving these students and supporting them while you're waiting for certain bureaucratic items to happen. You can also track students that decide to not participate in ITP services. Perhaps in an interview, talking with a student, finding out more about them, they decline to participate. They say, you know what, at this time, I'm not interested in pursuing a career, or they could be retired. But that is something that you can note and let know. This is the wide look or how many participants we could be serving. And then you're able to identify which ones are participating. Other items it's important to collect are going to be the education plan, that career pathway that the ITP student has chosen to investigate or is choosing to pursue, along with the specific educational goals along the way. Another way to document this work or the result of that intake interview could be an email summary of the goals that are sent to the student as a follow-up to that first meeting. This gets the information into the student's hands, literally into their inbox, and it provides a written trail for the staff person as well. If your program has a database that houses case notes, that education plan or email summary can be copied in as a note. Or they could be stored in a shared drive where program staff has access to what the record of what has been happening so that they can support as needed. So in other words, it'll allow communication perhaps between the instructor and the navigator or between the coordinator and program leadership. Okay, So right here, let's talk about what a program could look like. So for a program that is just beginning to serve ITPs, it can be intimidating to set up, here is a new program. However, ITP services can be an additional service, and it does not have to require a completely separate class. The ITP students can be identified as they complete the intake process. So screen the applications for education achievement from the home country, and then assess their language fluency, and then set up that interview. Afterwards, the services can include an ESL class. Perhaps they need that beginning level. But when they're in that beginning level class, the instructor may pair them up if there are, or set into a small group with other internationally trained professionals. Okay. And so in this way, there can be some differentiation with activities and focus, and a way for them to start building that community and building a professional network. When they are given distance learning, they are assigned career-focused English lessons or vocabulary in that approved curriculum. So like Brandy just mentioned, and our sponsor today, Burlington English, has a great variety of career pathway options for internationally trained professionals to learn on. The program staff will then set up follow-up case management meetings or advising appointments with the students to check in on them. See how their situation may have changed over the past couple of weeks, and what is their progress on their goal. Have they learned new items? Are they ready to move on to the next step? Or have they encountered any new barriers that we need to perhaps make a referral on or add additional support? So here are a couple of recommendations, and these recommendations come from internationally trained service providers across Texas. So these are lessons learned in reflecting on how we have worked with this specific population over the past 5 years. And again, one of the things that we try to emphasize is think about ways to start something like this small if this is a brand new service. That way programs do not have to overextend themselves. So by thinking about, can I do this in small groups? Perhaps we're going to do workshops. Yes, we're going to be using customized distance learning. And then setting up appointments with somebody who helps the students and talks with them in a more one-on-one way to give them that support on their education journey. Your program doesn't have to have all the answers at once. But what they can start to do is they can start to build out the resources that are needed, like a list of websites, and find the trainings that are needed to help equip the instructor or the career navigator with the skills they need to support the students. And then again, it's a matter of the staff are going to be basically co-creating this plan with the student. And again, notice how I keep focusing on the student. We want to make sure that we're centering them in our work, checking in with them, hosting listening sessions periodically. This is going to help shape the direction of what students are saying that they need. And again, we want to make sure that this is targeted, it meets their needs so that they are able to achieve their goals. And then I also want to recommend, or it was also recommended to use motivational interviewing techniques. And CoWave, I know, has more resources around that so that they can more effectively draw out what is needed in these interactions with the students. Okay. All right, so now what we can do is we can get to that nitty gritty and think about what are the components of case management that we can start to add to our programs. So again, this piece right here, this is what we're familiar with, right? The students are already coming to us to learn English. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that in addition to increasing in their interpersonal communication, we also want to make sure that we are working with the students on the cognitive academic language that they are going to be using in their career field. And so that's one of the reasons why that addition of customized distance learning, career focused distance learning is going to help, because then that added extra time is what they're using towards whatever career they have, whether it be medical, whether it be business. That way they're getting ready in that area. Another area of service to consider is financial literacy. Students may need support in this. We've worked with financial institutions in our program for generalized sessions and include the students in those. We've also worked with our community partner who conducts one-on-one sessions with students and customizes their services for the internationally trained professionals. Now, this is important if they need financial literacy services with that workplace focus or more knowledge about the system itself. When thinking about digital skills, we can't assume that the students have or do not have any gaps, okay? But what we want to do is to consider what is their level of access right now to devices and the internet in their home. Thinking about how the job search process and even some workplaces, how much connectivity could be needed from home is very important to think about. We also want to see what our incoming students' skill level is. What is their comfortability with those devices, with that technology? Are they familiar with the Microsoft suite or the Google suite? These are things that could be used in a professional office setting. Are they familiar with the actions and the digital skills needed to search for a job? Something like that video recording, which can be a prerequisite for an interview at a company. And so again, taking the time to assess, do they have that? And then perhaps, do I need to set up something in a one-on-one? Do I need to help coach them through a process? Or is this something many of my students are doing? Do I want to host a workshop in order to do this? So thinking about career exploration and developing a career plan with students, there can be many assumptions that are made about pathways for our internationally trained professionals. How can they engage with the local economy, and what are the correct steps forward? Sometimes creating a plan together is that first step with the students. This process can include research from the local area, research around state licensing, depending on the career. Staff need to consider what is the educational background and work experience, along with what are the in-demand careers and occupations in your area. What transferable skills does the student have right now? And then where could those transferable skills be used? What related positions that would provide an alternative and equally desirable outcome for the student? What would be a good entry point for the internationally trained professional to enter into the workforce? And then what future career steps can be made once they have gotten in at that point of entry? Do they need further education? Do they need licensing? So it's important to develop a list of websites with career guides, professional agency oversight organizations. Um, your local business networks are extremely important because they can give insight into specific skills that employers are looking for, what licenses may be needed, and then what openings are coming up that might benefit with an internationally trained professional applying. So college exploration can be something that a student would like to look into. Um, so we want to consider the student story and situation. Does the student need more college to achieve their goals? Please be aware of the financial challenges that ITPs could face when they have to pay for more post-secondary education. So it becomes a balancing act between what are the students' goals and what are their realities. And we want to make sure that we take extra care with the students to make sure that they are getting that correct information from their sources, especially if we're talking about resources on campus. So that becomes that time of, I want to make sure that we're not wasting the students' time and they are getting set on that pathway that is going to be most beneficial to them. So we talked about that customized advising piece. So I do want to stress here that every student is going to come with different circumstances. One of my staff members said this to me, and it really resonated strongly. Each student is a different world. And I really felt that strongly. They are coming with an ecosystem and a context, and that can be completely different from somebody else. So it's important to learn lessons and take resources, but not say, oh, it's always going to be like this. The professional that's sitting in front of us will and may choose differently. They are bringing a high level of skills and agency with them. They've already achieved that level of status and education in their home country. And so we want, and they may already have an idea of what they would like to achieve here. Again, for us, we may not be the expert, but we want to connect them to the resources they need to create their own plans. And we want to help guide the research or refer to the partners that have that know-how and knowledge. So here, I just kind of wanted to use this as a framework for the discussion with the students. And again, when we're talking about case management, the whole idea is that this is client driven, this is student driven. And so again, it's about supporting them as they are determining their goals. And so because this can sometimes be circular, we want to make sure that we're allowing the student that time to really think through what is going to provide that maximum benefit for me and my family. So this diagram comes from the Illinois Bridge Initiative. And that's where I got some of this information. So here and over the next slides, I have some mini templates that I had pulled from Switchboard that can break down that career planning process for the internationally trained professionals. Okay, so first right here is I have just a screenshot of a potential long-term template. Okay, so again, sitting down with the student and thinking through what are some of those things that could take a lot longer to do. So we've got the goal title, then we've got, okay, what are the steps that need to be completed? Then think through what are some of the things that could be barriers that stand in the way. And then as a case manager, we're going to, alongside the student, say, okay, let's problem solve together, and then identify what resources that the student can access. Okay. So after thinking through barriers and resources, then think about, okay, what's a reasonable time frame for something like this to happen? And then again, make sure that there's that time to think through, okay, when are we going to check in about this? How are we going to check off on progress? But the whole idea is that this needs to be driven by the student. And then right here, what I want to do is I want to show, so taking that goal, and again, that's just one specific goal. If we want to think about, all right, how do I represent a small part of a plan? We can use a map, something like this. So again, it becomes a clear outline of the steps, and it focuses just on 5 things. What are we going to do first? Right? What are we going to do second, all the way up to 5? And so that way, by breaking it down, it's really going to help make this more accountable. And again, this is for them to see that they are making progress on what they want to do. Okay, so this is one visualization of it. Notice it's linear. This is the same thing, but it is given in an upward trajectory. And so what it's doing is it's emphasizing how step 1 is foundational to step 2. Step 2 is foundational to step 3. So again, what you would want to do is you would want to think through, how do I want the student to see these goals? Would it help for them to see it all lined out, or would it help for them to see it as a staircase, and use the one that matters most to them? Okay, so let's go ahead and let's talk about the workforce preparation piece in case management. So this is a key topic for ITPs of all skill levels. The US workplace culture may be different than what they have experienced in the past. So it's an important part of their transition to the professional environment, so that they can start to learn the culture for the world of work. So as I've mentioned before, the job search process is, yes, very important to make sure that they are familiar with all of the steps. We can also talk about these microcultural expectations in face-to-face interactions: the handshake, eye contact, seated posture, all of those pieces that go into an interaction, perhaps in an interview or at a networking event. Another part of this, we can talk about how to socialize with colleagues, and what are the technical or professional language vocabulary knowledge pieces that also need to be learned. Is there something that they need to be ready for? Let's take a moment to talk a little bit about credential evaluations. So this service for students supports their professional goals in a very immediate way. Okay, so if a student has a bachelor's degree or higher, they should not need to get a GED or a high school equivalency certificate in the United States. Their education can be translated and validated for use here in the United States. So one resource for more information is the National Association of Credential Evaluation Services. They actually have a list of companies that are authorized to provide acceptable translations and evaluations. The important thing to note about evaluations and translations is that these services come with a cost. So it is extremely important to determine ahead of time, does the student need a translation, or do they need to have an evaluation? So that evaluation will state what equivalency in the United States that their home education is equal to. Does their goal include, so are they hoping to go to work, and does their employer only work with one of the specific company from NACES? Or are they hoping to go to an institute of higher education? And does that institute only work with a specific company? If that's the case, then the student is going to need to think about, okay, I want to know what is my purpose, and then choose the correct one. We have had students who have paid a notary public in order to translate their transcript, but unfortunately, because that was not done through a company that was approved by NACES, it was not accepted at their place of employment. Another thing to consider is that the students will have to have a copy of their official document or transcript with the stamp and signature. And again, for the bachelor's degree, the course of study should be 4 to 5 years at their home institution. So in that sort of a situation, if the student does not have the document at this time, can they get that document? Will the institution be able to send that to them? Or will that institution be able to send it directly to the company? Oftentimes, the company can have relationships with institutions to get the documentation sent to them. So let's talk about paying for the credential translation or evaluation. So as a nonprofit, we have actually written grants specifically to cover this cost. We've also partnered with another nonprofit so that the student co-enrolls in our program and in our partners program. And that way, they will pay half of the fee and we pay half of the fee. The main thing to do is to make sure that the student completes the requirements. So they must attend so many hours. They must attend so many advising appointments. The student must attain a measurable skills gain. The student has to go through so many financial literacy one-on-ones with our partner. So things like that to make sure that, again, it's a successful outcome. The partner wins, we win, and the student wins. Students can pay out of pocket, right? But that means that researching is going to be incredibly important because we don't want the students to waste their precious resources with getting an evaluation when they only needed a translation, or they've used the wrong company and they're trying to go to a college, but the college only accepts something different. So again, entering the workforce is just one successful outcome for serving internationally trained professionals. So in addition to returning to college, like we talked about in college advising, or completing a short-term training program, such as an integrated education and training program, ITPs may also choose to open their own business. They may have the back office know-how already from their experience that prepares them to be successful in entrepreneurship. And so this is where taking time to get to know the student's interest and background can come in handy in preparing a long-term goal that may interest them. And speaking of integrated education and training program, let me give you guys a specific example. Think about, again, what is that entry point into the workforce? In some places, there is an idea that the student has to have a certificate of completion from a place here in the United States. If that is very important to the employer, perhaps a short-term training program is one way to fulfill that. Instead of having them complete the GED or HiSET or TASK test, maybe they can complete a certificate. So an example, if someone was an accountant in their home country and they have the equivalency of a bachelor's degree in accounting, they could perhaps complete a bookkeeping certificate program and take a QuickBooks certification exam. They could start working as a bookkeeper in a small to mid-sized business. And then they can start working on getting promoted and working their way up the ladder, utilizing all of their experience in their office and adding value at the company. Okay, so I see that we do have some questions in the Q&A. I'm going to do my best to respond to them. And then, so let's go ahead and let's go. Boom. Someone asked, what advice do you have for ITPs who have visitor visas rather than working visas? This is a great question. So in a case like this, one of the things that can happen is working with the student and helping them with their professionalism, with learning English and in preparation. Instead of going into working because they do not have that authorization, they can volunteer. They can work on building their professional community because again, that is something that they are going to have to work on, excuse me, is getting that work visa as opposed to the visitor visa. Let me see. The next question is, are you planning on sharing out any of the document surveys that you use to support ITPs? Oh, that is a great question. Actually, yes, this presentation will be available on the COABE website. So it should be sent out along with the recording to people who signed up for this webinar. And then the other item is there are also additional resources that we have available. And I'm going to show you where to find that when I show you my contact information. Can you explain what you mean by OTJ technology? Yes, okay. Let me clarify that. So I was talking about when thinking about digital skills, oftentimes we want to make sure that our internationally trained professionals are familiar with technology that we're going to use on the job. So things like webinar or internet meeting software. Working with the Microsoft suite or the Google suite. There are certain skills that, again, it transfers either way, but still helping them develop that comfortability with that. Thank you for asking that question. Okay, someone asked, once their credentials are transferred, are they good indefinitely or do they expire? Ooh, that is a very good question. And I am going to be honest, I do not know the answer to that. I think that is going to be something that needs to be asked specifically to the company that the student is approaching for their translation or for their evaluation. And then I also saw, and I don't know, Bethel, I do have a question for you. If I saw somebody in the audience who may know, can I ask?
Yes, they won't be able to unmute, but they can comment back in the chat if they want.
Great. Okay. So I saw that we have Leticia Ferreira from Austin, Texas, and she actually works at World Education Service, which is one of the NASA's approved evaluators and translators. So she may have some insight and she can put that as a comment in the chat. Yes, I can get that website. Let me see. Um, I'm going to do a little bit of how the sausage is made, folks. Thanks for your patience. Mm, my notes are not showing up. I'm sorry, folks. All right. Let me see. Okay. Once their credentials are okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that I answered that question. Forgive me. Please check out the free services through WES Gateway program for credential evaluations for refugees. Yes, that is a great option because I did mention that oftentimes these come at a cost, but there are 7 countries. So if you will Google World Education Services Gateway program, you can students can excuse me internationally trained professionals can actually receive education validation or translation as necessary for free. Thank you so much for sharing that, and that was from Lynn Leslie. Okay. So someone asked, is there provision for scholarships for adult learners who are willing to further education? Ooh, that's a great question. I believe the answer should be yes. So for that sort of information, it is going to be about looking through scholarship opportunities across the country, or perhaps talking with local universities and understanding what foundation scholarships that they may have available. That is a great question. Okay, let me see. All right. I know that some of you folks may need to hop off. What I'll be doing is I will be sharing my contact card, and I will be sharing the website with the resources for synergytexas.com. So, but I'm going to continue answering questions. It looks like we've got about 4 more questions to answer. Okay. So the next question is, do you recommend any specific TOEFL courses or curriculum? My specific answer to that is no. I will admit that at our program in San Antonio, Texas, we have not included TOEFL services, but I'm going to reach out to folks that are in this presentation now. Please, if you have a recommendation on TOEFL courses or curriculum, please put it in the chat because if somebody is asking for specific resources around that. Okay, somebody is asking, oh, the name of my organization. So our organization is Restore Education. We are an adult education service provider in San Antonio, Texas. And then you're asking, it says, as well as any others that help with paying for evaluations or translations of degrees. That's a great question. So very recently, the state of Texas has allowed us to use adult education funds in order to pay or partially pay for credential evaluations or translations. We have also created grants. So we've approached sometimes banks and bank foundations, local foundations. We've also approached anything around helping folks to increase their stability in life. So anything around workforce development, those are some of the foundations that we have approached talking about would you fund translation or evaluation services. Okay, we are really struggling with tracking student outcomes. We use LACES, but it doesn't seem to provide the kind of reports we'd like. Aside of Excel, are there any sort of other applications or program recommendations? That's a great question. I think that I have heard programs say that they use, and especially I am coming from the nonprofit world. So other nonprofits have used programs like Apricot or ETO. There are ways to perhaps customize within Salesforce. We have used the Nonprofit Success Pack to do that. But there can be other databases out there. It's just a matter of, again, cost and licenses and things like that. So I completely understand why like tracking can be such a difficulty. If anybody has any specific database recommendations, please put it in the chat that someone has asked. Are you finding that employers are asking for validations in addition to cover letters and resumes? It's been my experience that validations are mostly for universities so that students can apply for FAFSA or receive credit for classes that are already taken in their country. Well, that's a really good question. So the answer to that is no. Employers typically are only going to need the translation. So I will say though that school districts, anybody who has to work in education may need that validation. But for most employers, a translation will suffice. That's a really great question. Okay. Question, is West Gateway available in the United States? I thought this was a Canadian program. That's a great question. Yes, it is available here in the United States. They are working with different partners in the United States than in Canada. In fact, Restore Education is one of the Gateway partners. TOEFL is usually not required if the student already is in the country. Please check with the college or university. Okay, that was a comment that was left there. Thank you very much. And then someone was asking what my title is. I am the Chief Program Officer here at Restore Education. Okay, that is all of the questions that I have. And then let me go ahead. Okay. So again, when this is sent out, you'll be able to access these resources. And then I also want to highlight synergytexas.org. So when you go there, see if I can go to that website, you'll have access to these resources right here, program resources. You can go down and see intake, teaching. These are going to be presentations that we did this spring, where we talked all about designing programs, interacting with employers, networking with students, and even had World Education Services come and present. And then data and research. And then, so just want to say thank you so much and turn this back over to Bethel.
Thank you so much, Kerri. Thank you everyone for joining us. I just want to let you know that you will get your certificate about 24 hours after the live webinar ends. So tomorrow afternoon, you'll get your certificate for joining us. Also, if you signed up for the webinar, you'll receive the recording link as well as Kerri's handouts, anything that she has sent us. And those will be posted on the website as well. They just won't be posted for a little bit. So just give us a little bit of grace on that. If you guys want to contact Kerri, she did put her email address up there. If you missed that, you can always email us and we'll send you her contact information as well as Brandy Cardwell from Burlington English. So just want to say thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your week. And thanks again, Kerri and Brandy.
Thank you.